Anyone home? Oh, you here already? I thought you were back till this afternoon. Oh. Well, I can go away if you want. No, mate, your dad's going to be disappointed. He wanted to be here, but he's out on a job. How you feeling, love?
Oh, good. Just glad to be home.
Show him his fan mail, man.
Oh, yeah, your manager came yesterday. Look,
And drop this over.
it's all the get well soon cards people have sent you.
Wait, Bob was here?
Oh, yeah, bobbed over.
He's coming back later and all.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
Hello and welcome to episode 221 of the Talk of the Street, an unofficial Coronation Street catch-up podcast that needs to remind everyone that Imran didn't die in a car crash. Homeless Stu has served his time, and that blonde kid, I think was Jake, probably. I'm Gavin.
And this week, I held a book that was older than my country.
Wow.
Yeah. In German.
Oh. What was the book?
It was a book of sermons from a Lutheran pastor who was also a hymnist and a contemporary of Johann Sebastian Bach.
Oh, not again. I think you've used that intro before. Of holding a book that was older. No, maybe you haven't.
I haven't.
Maybe you haven't.
I told you about it. Maybe that's what it is.
That's what it is.
I also held a collection of lithographs of illustrations by Maurice Sendak, and that made me even more excited.
This new job seems to be sitting you down to the ground.
It is. It is delightful. It's nice to be working with books again in any capacity.
Very good.
Yes. Yeah, it's also kind of nice to get out of the house occasionally.
It's not
Who'da
bad.
thunk?
It's already up to a
thunk?
point.
Yeah, if you enjoy where you're going, then it's helpful.
Yeah.
Some of us aren't so lucky.
Yeah, I've started my 3 days back at work.
Yeah.
And 2 days off, and it does suck donkey balls.
The dog hates it.
Yeah, the dog's not going to be happy about that.
The dog hates it because on Wednesdays he's all by himself, and that makes him sad. He hasn't been all by himself in the house for that length of time in years.
Right.
Because, even when we're away, the big kid comes back to the house to take care of him. So
so he claims.
he does, because I see evidence of it. Like him leaving
The
me
little footprints in the flour or something.
lug nuts tickets. I haven't used yet.
So you've been otherwise.
I'm really, really hot. It's the menopause. I feel an affinity with Faye I never thought I'd ever feel.
It is quite warm in here.
Oh, so maybe it's not the menopause.
No, it's 80 odd degrees and it's the middle of September. Remember when September used to be like the start of fall?
I was so excited. I bought a new sweater. It's going to be like my sweater, this year's it sweater. And I've worn it once and I had to take it off halfway through the day because it just got too warm.
Yeah, it's going to be another warm weekend. I think this is the last of the 80 degrees and it's cooling off after that. But here we are, mid-September, and it's kind of summer weather out there. But that's normal. It's fine.
It's fine.
It's absolutely fine.
It's all fine.
And
Everything's fine.
And if you're to suggest otherwise, you're a communist.
You are.
Right? How confused are you with the whole episode shiftings? I have no idea. We recorded last week,
Thinking
just Monday and Wednesday, thinking that we'll end up doing 4 episodes this week, and there's still only 3 episodes, and I think there's an episode on Sunday at the moment.
Well, guess what? Guess what? You'll find all about that in Corrie News.
Oh, I'm preempting Corrie News. Well, why don't we just...
because I want to know how your week was before we do that.
I feel like I've been carrying a sinus cold thing for most of the week, so...
Yeah.
Today's really the first day that I'm feeling a little bit better.
Yeah, you got too close to the Echo and the Bunnymen, and you caught whatever Ian had that made him talk like a weirdo.
How was that for you? Because I really enjoyed that whole experience of going through to Detroit last Friday. And,
it was great. I love Detroit.
And saying we're on the guest list. never doesn't make me smile thinking about that.
Well, you got to say it.
Yeah.
I didn't get to say it.
You got to be in my aura. Lucky you.
I always get to be in your aura.
Yeah,
And then we walk in and we feel so fancy, and then our tickets don't scan.
I see. I don't tell people that bit. Then we had to go back outside again.
Too late. We're not too late.
But it was good that we had to go back out again because then we found a little secret entrance that
Right.
we could go through, that we jumped the line.
Yeah.
Which was quite nice.
Yeah.
And we got to meet Chris. Yes, that one.
Yes, Chris, that one. He was lovely.
He was lovely.
Maybe you shouldn't have hugged him, though.
Maybe not.
Maybe I shouldn't have hugged him.
He's went on to Canada and I think is in New York at the moment.
Yeah, they're just about done with this tour.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to see who he tours with next and comes to Detroit.
I don't think I can go to a concert again and not have tickets from their sound engineer.
Right.
So if any band that I like, I'm going to have to become friends with their sound engineer, which sounds like a pretty tall order.
Yeah, you never know. Yeah. We have a child who wants concert tickets for her birthday and she doesn't care what band it is.
It's all about experiences, and I
Right.
think that's a great thing.
It is. It's nice. Unfortunately, it just doesn't seem like... It seems like slim pickings
They're playing
in November.
Slim Pickens in November. I'm there.
I wish.
I love their second album, also called Slim Pickens.
Isn't Slim Pickens just one guy?
Is it? I don't know. That was kind of a joke that you seem to be taking seriously.
Because Slim Pickens is a real
Maybe
human being.
we should move on. Shall we preamble, my dear?
Yes, please.
Give us some of that steamy Corrie news.
Maybe it's the fact I'm wearing my Witchy Woman t-shirt that I'm so hot.
No, it's just generally hot in here.
Because I'm going to hell because I'm wearing a Witchy Woman t-shirt.
I'm wearing my Colorado Allied t-shirt.
Yes, so you're going...
Or an alley, if my name is Ali.
Or Cali.
Yeah, I
It's
think I
got the
pull
big
off.
C.
I think I pull off Ali better than Cali. Oh, that doesn't sound great. Corrie news, you say?
If you were confused as to what day of the week it is when you tuned into ITV and found Emmerdale instead, no worries. It is indeed Friday. However, Corrie was bumped for a double dose of the Dale. There will also not be an episode on Monday, for obvious reasons.
Mm-hmm.
However, we do get an extra episode on Sunday, so huzzah! I will still watch everything next Friday, so it's 6 2/3 for me, but I'm sure there are people out there who are happy about a Friday episode, or a Sunday episode.
There seems to be a changing landscape for this. It's because there was supposed to be an episode tonight, I think, that they moved to Sunday. Then there's not going to be anything on Monday, and then I don't know what it's going to be like for... I don't know where they're going to fit in the missing episode.
Well, the National TV Awards were bumped till next month.
Right.
So they're filling in that slot with some Corrie and some Emmerdale, I do believe. So that might help. And finally, Millie Gibson has taken a little bit of Kelly with her after leaving the show, revealing that she nabbed the black puffa jacket with the fur-lined hood so that she would always have a bit of Kelly with her.
All right, so that wasn't the ITV puffa jacket.
No,
that was just
it's the black one that she
character's
that
Right.
the character wore.
Yeah, I want an ITV puffa jacket.
Well, you should tell ITV that.
I feel like I kind of am.
You think they listen to us?
I think somebody in ITV listens to this, surely.
Right, that's where they got the whole idea for the sinkhole.
I just really don't think that's a thing.
Somebody read your book, and that's Corrie News.
See, so few people read my book that I think I can probably look at the royalty sheet and figure out who every single person was. That's not true. I sold a couple of 100 copies. Anyway,
somebody on Coronation Street bought your book.
No, they didn't.
Yes, they did.
And now we'll podcast for coffee. So it's Friday night again, as opposed to Saturday morning. So we're not drinking coffee at the moment.
No, I'm drinking water.
I have a Cherry Coke Zero.
Ooh, you're so fancy.
Do you know,
It's-
if I was to go back and speak to 14-year-old Gavin and say, in 35 years' time, fucking hell, In 35 years' time, you'll be sitting doing a Coronation Street podcast whilst drinking Cherry Coke Zero.
In mid-Michigan.
I would have laughed at myself.
You would have said, what's a podcast?
Right. And who's a Coronation Street?
And what am I doing in mid-Michigan?
Right. But I'm all about the Cherry Coke now. That's so much better than regular Coke.
It's good that you got to it before Betty did.
Yeah, he devours it.
He tends to clean you out of those after he cleans out his own root beers.
Sometimes even before that. Anyway, no coffees this week. But
Well.
if you want to buy us next week's coffee, if you think any of this is, and I would recommend that you don't, but if you think that any of this is worth more than the time it takes to listen to it, you can buy us next week's coffees by going to ko-fi.com, that's ko-fi.com/the talk of the street, where $5 will buy us a couple of coffees from our gas station or
Big B's.
Big B.
Because Big B has oat milk. Our gas station does not.
It does not. And now this.
Oh, welcome.
Well, welcome to Last Year Tonight with me, John Oliver. Just enough time to quickly talk about your accidental fiancé.
I thought we promised never to talk about him again.
Well, it's come up.
Oh, no. I thought we buried him already.
Well, now he's got an OnlyFans.
Oh, no.
It's
A
hard.
corpse has an OnlyFans.
It's hard
It's
to
come to
ignore.
this.
That's right, this was Fizz and Tyrone talking about the kiss that they'd shared, with Fizz telling Tyrone to go back home to his accidental fiancé. I was Gavin and your weekend was fucked.
What happened last year to fuck up my weekend?
Stella had a soccer tournament that lasted all weekend.
Oh, God, I remember that.
So it was a Friday night recording for the first time in, I think, years. This time last year.
Thank God for marching band.
Right. We'd put common language officially on hiatus and had a new idea hatching to replace it.
Yes.
I'm thinking about just cancelling the accounts for common language and poetry in the bar. Because I'm paying money for no reason
Yeah.
to both.
Yeah. We did have that one lady who messaged us when we were coming out of Licorice Pizza asking if we were going to start doing common language again.
I guess the answer to that is no. Or not currently. I can
Yeah,
restart it if
we can always reboot it later.
Yeah.
If we come to it. Sometimes it's important to know when to let go.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And let's keep that in mind as we're talking about this week's Coronation Street.
No.
Okay then. We had tons to get through, so banter was kept to a minimum. Maybe something that we should have done this week as well. Kelly gradually comes to terms with her situation and makes a new friend on the inside, with a guilty Imran being out of pocket on her psychiatric care. Distraught from last week's verdict, Abby breaks up with Kev and disappears to her cousins, in inverted commas. Back on the muck, in other words. Alina puts in the hard hours to fix her relationship with Hope, which leads to the unearthing of some troubling history.
Uh-oh.
Craig discovers that doing the right thing late doesn't easily remedy doing the stupid thing quickly, and James is less than impressed to hear that his conscience eventually got the better of him. That was, remember, PC,
Right, yes.
PC racist Tinker.
Yes.
Aadi accuses Dev of not caring about his new relationship with Summer. Remember?
I
vaguely
remember.
remember that. And then within 12 hours regrets ever mentioning it. Ken returns to badmouth Norris with Rita in the cafe and then isn't fazed in the slightest when later the same day Norris dies. Max, with a new head,
I still blame Ken.
is having problems at school and is making life difficult for newly instated teacher Daniel. Speed Daal's financial problems continue and then escalate to such an extent that two old characters and a tarantula are coaxed out of the shadows. Remember the tarantula? I think we called it Chekhov's tarantula, that if you introduce a tarantula in Act 1, it has to be crawling up someone's back in Act 2.
Yeah. And ironically, we have more creepy crawlies this week.
And Speed Daal financial problems.
Yes.
Jimmy's movements are like clockwork.
Who?
I don't know. Phil's Merc has impeccable service history. That was when he was driving a Mercedes. He was driving an Audi, I think, that Hope smashed. Tim's mum starts abbreviating things. Our moment of the week was Hope's emotional reaction to Tyrone's anger when she said that she hated Alina. And our boring moment of the week was Daniel explaining Titus Andronicus to Bernie. And that was Coronation Street. And the Talk of the Street this time last year.
Still makes me fall asleep.
Yeah. How do you think this is going generally? Enough to carry on?
What do you mean?
Let's carry on then.
Okay.
Shall we dive in, my dear?
Yes, please. Let's keep calm and carry on.
Our first storyline tonight is our last storyline tonight. So our second storyline is sheer heart attack. On last Friday, I think. Was it last? Yes, on last Friday. Because I thought we were doing 4 episodes this week, I kind of kept last Friday's fairly tight. So we should zoom through this. And we probably won't.
But it wasn't on last Friday.
Yeah, it was. Well, last Friday's episodes. It was the episodes that should have been shown last Friday that were shown on Monday.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Well, we
let's
just
make
call
this
that
even
Monday?
more. Yes.
We'll just call that
please,
Monday.
Can we
Let's
just
just
call
call-
that Monday?
Right, okay. On Monday. There's good news at the hospital. James's heart attack hasn't caused any lasting damage, but he has a genetic condition, and he's going to have to be fitted with a set of jumper cables to make sure that it doesn't happen again.
Wouldn't the family know already that they have this genetic condition? Wouldn't somebody else in the family, Uncle Joe, have passed from a heart attack early in life at some point?
Well, I don't know. That would mean that everybody knows about all their genetic conditions up front. I don't know if that's the case. Uncle Joe just died young, and then nobody cared.
Of a heart attack.
And nobody cared.
I guess I'm just weird then.
Well, I think we already knew that. James wants to know if he can go back to football after that. Yeah, sure. After, says the doctor.
Yeah.
Who's our
After.
Who's our Scottish doctor friend?
Our beloved cardiologist to the stars.
Whose name escapes me at the moment. So he's whipped down to theatre while Aadi worries about how she listened to Tim moan about his bobby while James was dead on a 5-a-side pitch. James's surgery goes well though, and Michael goes off to tell Danny and Dee Dee, because Dee Dee gets a little mention.
Yeah.
And because it was a local anaesthetic, he's immediately talking to Aadi about getting back to training. Worried, Aadi tells Ed she's not about to let her son die just because of stupid fucking football.
I don't understand why it was just a local anesthetic. That seems...
Well, I don't think they put you under full anaesthetic unless they absolutely have to.
I mean...
There's complications that come from that, isn't there?
I mean, they put me completely under for...
Yeah, but this is America, and the health system here is
for
completely fucking crazy.
colonoscopies.
Mm-hmm. Whereas my mum, who got colonoscopies, watched it happen on TV.
Well, my mom, when my mom started to have colonoscopies, because we are aware that colon cancer runs in our family.
You only knew that once you'd got it, though.
No, I knew it well before then, because
Oh, you never mentioned it.
my grandmother died of it, and her father had it. But yeah, they didn't used to put you under for them, but it is incredibly invasive. Even if they just numb the area, psychologically, you're freaking out, aren't you? To have a tube stuck up your butt?
I've had worse things. On Wednesday then, James has been in hospital for 2 days, so is told by the consultant that he can go home today. Aggie's still concerned about this, but James actually says the words, "A life without football is a living death as far as he's concerned."
Yikes.
He asked,
what does he plan? What was his plan for when he's too old to play football?
and let's be honest, right, between you and I, because it's just you and I here.
And our thousands of listeners throughout the world.
So, like I said, just
Mostly
you and I.
Canada.
How good a footballer must he be if he's living in a terraced house in Manchester with his parents?
Well, let's remember, he tried to move out and his mum wouldn't let him. She's like, no, you have to stay at home. You have to live with us because we're family.
Well,
He could move out. He just doesn't want to disappoint his mother.
I think plot dictates that he doesn't move out, because then he would never be in any Oh, now see what I've done there.
Mm-hmm.
He asks the consultant if he can get back to playing football, and the consultant tells him to heed the advice of the team's medical staff, take it easy, and he has a fair chance of making it back. So this makes James worried that he'll never get back to full fitness. And then there's that young whippersnapper who's taken his spot in the team and who actually scored a goal apparently.
Wow.
Michael tells him to fight for his place and compete, which doesn't sound very much like taking it easy or listening to advice to me.
No.
On Thursday, James is home from hospital to a welcome home parade. Ronnie reveals that his manager, Bob Dover, what a hilarious name that is.
At least it's not
Ben.
Ben.
What's Build Over?
Build over. Build
Yes,
over.
Thank goodness it's not that.
That plot in the backyard where we buried the accidental fiance.
Right. Who, oddly enough, did bend over. He's been round with a get well card and he'll be back later for a chat. So when Bob Dover, his name's Bob Dover. It's Bob. When Bob Dover,
It's a good thing his name's at White Cliffs.
or Mick Hunt, when he comes round later, James makes a big deal about getting back in training and honouring his new contract that we're just learning about. But Bob says that the lawyers or the club hadn't signed the contract, so he doesn't actually have one, and
No.
it doesn't make sense for them to do so now until James can get back to full fitness, at which point they'll reconsider it.
Right.
Sorry, kid. Damn the brakes,
Yes.
says Bob Dover.
Cliff Dover.
And later, Cliff Dover?
White Cliff. Heathcliff.
Wycliffe John Dover. And later, a distraught James tells his family, and Danny over speakerphone probably, that the only thing he cares about in his life has been taken away.
Yeah.
And that's as far as we get with that
Fuck
this
you,
week.
family, and Danny.
Right. That thing that I'm fairly mediocre at, it's the most important thing in my life.
No, he can't be fairly mediocre because you don't get on a team if you're fairly mediocre.
Well, you don't get on a good team.
Well, even a bad team, you still have to be fairly decent.
I think
it's very competitive,
Okay,
even
so
for
in-
like the little teams.
So in comparison to the population at large, he's probably very good at
Yes.
football.
Yes.
Compared to other footballers, he's probably mediocre.
He's better than Corrie.
Because remember, was he better than Corrie? Because I thought
Yeah.
Corrie was.
They were
He's
talking him
supposed
up
to-
like this huge superstar, but he
was.
was rubbish.
The
They were
Lionel
just
Messi of
Talking him up
Weatherfield or whatever.
because his dad had money and stuff.
So we've been, well, I think we've been noticing that there hasn't been much in the way of
James
Bailey storylines,
yeah.
and particularly James storylines, for a while. I think this kind of is why, because he's a footballer and football
Right.
stories are born. So,
Unless you're watching Ted Lasso. Twice Emmy Award winning Ted Lasso.
it's not funny. I
is.
don't know why it wins awards. It's awful.
I didn't think this past season was as good as the season before, but I still find it amusing.
Anyway, so this is how we get him out of playing football, I guess, and into doing something that's a little bit more interesting.
What else is there for him to do? Is he going to work at the Rovers? Is he going to work at Speed Daal? Is he going to work at the factory?
Probably work at the factory.
There are very limited choices here for jobs for people, which is kind of boring.
Maybe should have just killed him off then. They had the chance they could have killed him off. So they have some plans for him. Otherwise, they would have killed him off.
Yeah. Maybe he'll be like a commentator on local television.
It needs to be something where he's
Or
involved with the characters that are in the street, and that's what drags him into other storylines.
Maybe him and Tim will start a footballing podcast.
How does that involve him? Well, it involves him with Tim, I guess.
Right,
but-
yes. And everybody on the street listens to it.
And then what happens?
And then they give them comments about it.
Nobody comments on people's podcasts. Are you crazy? I would hope that they'd have something a bit more interesting than that up their sleeve.
I don't know. I would find that amusing. Better than working in the factory. Too many people work in that factory.
Okay, it's just there has to be something. They've got a snooker hall that's there.
Isn't that still abandoned? Nobody bought it.
Right, so here's a footballer with, one would assume if he's professional, he has some disposable money.
Right, yes. That
Buy
he's
a
not
snooker hall,
buying a house with.
get a snooker hall up and running, and then we have another set that people can be involved in and stuff. And
Wouldn't
it's
that
still-
be nice?
And it's still kind of sport, I guess. If you
Wouldn't
call
that be
snooker a
nice?
sport.
Yes, but does he have a head for business?
That doesn't stop most footballers getting involved in it. Footballers tend to run pubs once they're
Maybe he
once
and
they're out, or they used to.
Maybe he and Peter can get into business because Peter was the one who wanted to buy that snooker hall last, remember?
Peter had the chance to put money into that, and I think he chose to invest in the factory, didn't he?
Something like that. I don't know.
And then it
was
all
just
gets
a
lost
really
in that
romantic scene
big
with
money
him and
laundering.
Carla in the snooker hall watching the fireworks
Right.
on New Year's Eve. That was a really lovely scene.
I think that was moment of the week.
Yeah. Yeah. I like scenes like that.
Yeah, I prefer Peter when he's not a conspiracy theorist. But anyway, we're talking about James and the Baileys here.
Right.
Yeah, give him something like that to do that gets other people involved. It's another set, so people aren't just going from bistro to pub to Speed Daal. It gives another location that puts a little bit of variety into it. Because if you're in a snooker hall, well, they can do food, they can do drink,
Right.
they can do a little bit of darts.
Yeah.
You know, they can do functions. Maybe appealing more to the male characters, but still, at least it's another location.
We don't mind looking at the male characters occasionally.
There you go. All right, shall we move on then
Yes.
to just a very quick 4 scenes here from Monday in My Dead Mum Says I'm Cool. On Monday at the bus stop, Sam and Hope are talking about Jalena's party. Hope tells Sam that he needs to get changed out of his school uniform before he goes to a party, and I think Sam was intending on going in his school uniform.
Yes.
Liam comes along in his Weather County strip. Sam questions if his trainers are cool and if Liam in general is cool. Sam wants to be cool.
Yes. And yet, Sam, smartest kid on the street, doesn't know that pencils no longer contain lead. They contain graphite.
And that's been the case since I was a kid.
Yeah. Yeah. What happened there, writers? Dropping the ball on the smartest kid on the street, saying that pencils have lead.
Generally, people say there's lead in a pencil,
Right.
don't they?
But everybody knows it's graphite. And Sam is the kind of kid who would say, here's a fun fact. It's not really lead. It's graphite.
Oh.
That's something Sam would say.
That reminds me, I have a fun fact later on.
About graphite?
Have I missed it? No, I don't think so.
Is it about graphite, though?
No.
Ah.
And I don't know how fun it is, but it's a fact. So that's something to look forward to, isn't it, listeners?
It is.
Later.
Anyway, that was a thing that was one of the things that really annoyed me this week is Sam saying lead, because that's just kind of the person I am.
Sam wants to be cool. So cool, in fact, that he turns up to Jalena's party in a new Weather County strip. He tells
And
Jalena
fancy sneakers.
and her friend John, who is basically a taller version of him, that he's into video games and football now because he's cool. And Jalena says, well, does that mean that we're not cool? And Sam goes, yeah, I didn't think this through.
No, yeah. He didn't think the whole thing through because this just does not go his way.
Later, Jalena tells Sam that she would have invited him round to hers for a game of chess if he hadn't turned up as a full kit wanker. And so she's asked John instead. All right, John. Meanwhile, Leanne is sitting in a burning room drinking a coffee, saying how she doesn't know what a meme is. I don't even know what a meme is.
I don't even know what a meme is, but this is fine.
Sam rushes out and we see him posting another of his letters, but this time we see the recipient is Harvey Flaming Gaskell in the jail. And then we see a still image of Sam walking along the street with Jalena, but she's glaring at him because he's turned his head at Harvey Gaskell walking the other way. And
there's no return
also
address on that envelope.
I don't think British people tend to write return addresses on envelopes.
Really?
I know I certainly didn't.
What,
And if I did, I'd write it on the back.
what happens if your letter gets lost and it needs to be returned to you?
The
How does that happen?
The Royal Mail never loses a letter. So,
I have to say they were very good about getting your mum's stuff to us here in America that one time.
yeah,
Yeah.
they were good at that.
Yes, they were.
Yeah, I think if I'm going to write a return address, I'm going to write it on the back. I'm not going to write it on the front.
Yeah, you're required to write it in the front.
I know.
Of course, nobody sends
One of the
mail
things that
anyway.
they don't tell you before you move here,
Right. Yeah, it's true.
and the differences in writing checks. But we're not talking about that.
Who writes checks?
Sam, what do you think of Jalena telling Sam that she would have invited him? That seemed unnecessarily cruel.
No, I think she's spot on because he's doing this ridiculous thing. He's basically telling her she's not cool and he doesn't like the stuff she likes anymore, which means that he doesn't like her anymore. He doesn't mean it that way, but he's doing it that way because Sam is an awkward kid who doesn't understand social signals very well.
But seems to, despite knowing Jalena from a while back,
Right.
seems to be listening to Hope and Liam about how to behave.
Right. Yeah, because Hope's like, no, she won't be nice to you if you're not cool. But Hope never says to give up chess. She
No.
just says that you need to dress better. Which, fair enough. I don't think a Wethy County stripe is cool, though,
Stripe?
necessarily. The shirt.
Strip.
Strip. Not stripe.
Yeah.
It does have a stripe on it, though, in fairness.
Hooped, I think it is.
Ah.
I can just hear all the Rangers fans complaining that the way the county strip is actually like a Celtic strip. It used to be all green.
Do you know there was actually a news article about the fact that Celtic gets mentioned in Coronation Street this week?
Yeah, and I didn't know in what context. I heard Michael say it, but I didn't.
Michael didn't say it. It was
Yeah,
It was one
Michael
of
said
the
it.
it was one of the wee boys to Kelly in
Oh, well,
another
Then
storyline.
Michael said it as well then.
Oh.
Because he was naming some players who I think have been through the same thing as James
Or
has been
naming some other places that James could play for.
through. Right. Yeah, that was Michael that did that.
Yeah. There's a lot of football talk this week.
Too much football
What
talk.
is going on?
Too much football talk.
They're forgetting their demographic of old ladies and gay men.
Right. And me.
Not that old ladies and gay men can't be into the football, because they can.
Yeah, but demographically, I think it's unlikely. Not impossible.
Here I'm trying to recover from us saying something kind of insensitive, and then you go right back into it.
Well, it's generally speaking, I think you were on safe ground.
Meh.
But yeah, I don't know. He seems to be listening to the wrong people about this,
No. Yeah.
and also not speaking to Nick about it because
Well, Nick's not cool. He's a dad. Dads aren't cool.
Right. Now, the main thing about this storyline was the little twist, and he's writing to Harvey.
Right.
This is Chekhov's Harvey, really, isn't it?
Right,
You don't
yeah.
mention Harvey without
Harvey
making a
eventually
reappearance.
making it back.
What's he writing to him for?
Right. And it's not like Harvey's writing back, because can you imagine if a letter from Harvey showed up at the house? That would be weird. Of course, he doesn't have his return address on there, so people may not know that it was Harvey.
Might be in the back.
Also, I feel like Sam's penmanship should be better than that.
I thought so too. I thought it was all a little scratchy.
Yeah, that looks like Hope's penmanship.
I assume that this is who he's been writing to
All along,
all
yes.
along.
Yeah. Because Jalena's really confused when somebody says that Sam is her pen pal.
Well, in this case, then Sam played that cool as a cucumber.
He really did.
When Nick said to him, "Is there anything about these letters that I should know about?" last week,
Right.
he said, "Nope, the grammar's fine."
Yeah.
He wasn't panicked.
No. He didn't do like a shifty eye.
No. Oh well.
He's getting to be a much better liar than he used to be.
I wonder why he's writing to Harvey though. I guess he's blaming Harvey for his mum's death, which is
Well,
he's correct about.
Maybe he's trying to forgive Harvey for killing his mother and trying to understand why.
I don't know. The reason that I liked this, because I did like it as a little twist, was
It's an interesting twist.
you may remember he spent the longest time being kind of mute from the whole thing, and then started talking to Hope on the walkie-talkies, and gradually he's got back, and gradually we've started to think that maybe he's got over it to a certain extent. He's not thinking about it anymore, but this kind of proves that he is, and kind of suggests that he always has been. He's just able to deal with it a little bit better, and maybe better concealing it.
I don't think your mother being murdered is something that you ever forget.
Well, he was focusing on his chess, and that was his
Right.
obsession.
Yeah.
And every time we saw him, he was talking about that. He wasn't talking about his mother.
No, he's never really talked about his mother.
No, but this is a nice little callback to that
Yeah.
is always in the back of
Very
his mind.
interesting.
So, yeah, I'd be curious to see. And I was actually a little disappointed that we didn't get some more of that this week.
Well, we'll get more in like 3 months.
Right. In the meantime, let's move on to our next storyline, which is Sitstuation Vacant.
Wow.
Difficult to say.
Difficult to hear.
Now, is this where my...
Fun fact?
No, fun fact isn't in this
Oh,
one.
so it's not a...
There will be no fun facts in this segment.
No fun facts about cockroaches.
There will be no fun, and there will be no facts.
La cucaracha.
On Monday at Speed Daal, they have no bookings because homeless Stu might have killed someone. They're also getting prank calls.
30 years ago, for which he's already done his time.
Yeah, people keep on forgetting about this.
Aye.
Realising that he's to blame, homeless Stu leaves where he's accosted by a group of youths who recognise him from an article in the Weather Gazette, because that's the thing about youths. They're always reading local news.
They're reading the newspaper.
Always on top of the local news articles. And it's funny because it looks like the Gazette have used a screenshot from Corrie when Asher caught homeless Stu shoplifting with ITV Corrie's backpack that time. That's the screenshot that they used in their article.
Hilarious.
How do I know that? Of course I know that.
Of course. It's instead of spending time with your family and cleaning the bathroom, you were...
I cleaned the bathroom last month. They harass him and push him over, but Stu is saved by Nina, who uses her gothic powers and her phone camera to scare the youths away.
She does a great job.
Back home, she tells him that she owes him after he helped get ITV Corrie nicked, and that she believes him to be innocent. She doesn't need him to confirm it.
Right.
On Wednesday, homeless Stu is in Nina's roles, where he's caught by Alya and Zidane looking for a new job. They're disappointed, but he reckons this is the only way for the restaurant to survive. Later, Alya runs into Billy dishing out his shitty soup to the hungry of Weatherfield.
No, it's not shitty. It's from Speed Daal.
Oh,
Alya's just dropped it off.
He was dishing out stuff before she arrived,
Oh.
and that was shitty. She explains the situation at Speed Daal and homeless Stu looking for alternate employment. So when Sean comes along talking about his birthday celebrations, Billy recommends Speed Daal and asks Sean to show some compassion, because Sean is like, oh yeah, go for a curry and end up getting murdered. Well, we can but dream, Sean.
Yeah, and let's remember when you were homeless, Sean, and then when you scammed your friends with a pyramid scheme. Whomst amongst us is innocent of everything?
Separately, Billy tells homeless Stu that people around here have good hearts, apart from Peter, who tried to throw him off a cliff, Adam, who hoodwinked him into getting addicted to heroin, or Todd, who lied and cheated his way back into his life. But apart from them, great folks, big hearts. Give them time and they'll come round. And hearing this, homeless Stu goes back to work. So despite his reservation, Sean goes to Speed Daal and books a table for tomorrow at 2 p.m. for lunch, and he optimistically asks for a table for 10. Shit's picking up after all, says Alya, and one wonders if she'll be so cheery tomorrow when Sean's table for 10 turns out to be a takeaway for 1.
So it would be Sean,
number 1.
Dylan,
Head of the table, Dylan.
The Undertaker,
George. Glenda. Eileen. Todd.
Todd doesn't show up though, does he? No. Oh, his boyfriend. What's his name?
Lawrence.
Lawrence.
Still need 3.
Mary? Because Mary still lives there, right?
She does, but I don't know if she'd go.
No, because she and Glenda are BFFs now.
Yeah, Glenda.
Who's there?
Yeah, but it's Sean's birthday though.
Why wouldn't Sean invite Mary? Mary.
I don't see Mary going to that. I'm not giving you Mary. Another 3. Homeless Carol.
Gemma. They work together. I really
Well,
don't.
Well, maybe don't start counting when we're recording
Mary.
a podcast then.
Mary would
Well,
go.
you still need 2 then.
Daisy and Gemma. Not that Daisy would ever go.
Daisy wouldn't go.
No.
So on Thursday in the Bistro, Lawrence has given Sean a dragon kimono for his birthday because that's what he was needing, on top of the peacock shirt that he was wearing. Boy, does Lawrence know Sean. Sean, though, seems more interested in Lawrence coming to his birthday lunch so he can prove to people that he actually exists. Lawrence, though, has to go into work, but says that he'll see what he can do, rather optimistically. In Speed Daal, a happy customer wants to pass on his compliments to Homeless Stew, but as soon as he's done so, he's on the phone to a mystery third party, telling them that Homeless Stew is definitely the person they think he is. Sean's table for 10 turns out to be a table for 5 as he's waiting for Lawrence and the knicker people, apparently, were going to turn up. Sean calls Lawrence his significant other, and this is why Lawrence could be forgiven for not showing up.
Because he's being called a significant other?
Already? And he did this right at the start. He
bought him a kimono, and he wants
quick.
to whisk him away to a weekend away to watch a musical. That feels like a significant other thing to do.
The second, well, this is before that happened. For a starter,
no, because he says check the pocket in the kimono, so he's already gotten the kimono, so he's already gotten his tickets.
but no, because it all kind of happened as soon as they started going out together. Because it started when he was going to be Frank the Wank as well. It was very quick to promote the man in his life up through the ranks and puts a little bit, I don't know, if you just start going out with somebody and you get called a significant other,
I think
that's red flag territory there.
I think if Sean gets a second date, he considers it a significant other.
Well, that's my point.
Because he rarely gets a second date.
The happy customer comes back, and this time he's an ominous customer. He announces himself as Charlie's mate, out for revenge on Stu's employer, and he quickly produces a box that he opens, and Sean's table practically faints as Gwyneth Paltrow's head rolls out along with a candle that smells of her vagina. It's full of cockroaches. The box, not Gwyneth Paltrow's vagina.
Well,
who knows?
Oh, I love it because that's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, does he have Charlie's head in there? Right. Just the way everybody reacts at the table, like, whoa!
When they couldn't have seen what was in the box at the angle, but that's a minor quibble.
Well, it depends upon how many cockroaches are in there.
Is this meant to be funny? Where did they get the cockroaches from? Who was he phoning?
A pet store. He would have bought the cockroaches at a pet store. So he's invested money in this. I thought maybe it was rats. Because how do you dump all those cockroaches in there and not have like a million cockroaches just jump right back out of the box? How did he do that?
The box was kind of at an angle before he opened it, and I'm thinking, well, the cockroaches are going to fall out of this. But then he's just standing in the middle of all this terror, not giving a solitary shit about the cockroaches that are currently going up his legs.
Right, yeah.
He's not a celebrity, get me out of here. He's quite happy about this.
Yeah.
Everyone else is losing their shit, but he's just standing there going, yep, that's a job well done. And he accuses Speed Daal of hiring, well, we're getting the cops on you, says the Dan, for doing this. You're not going to get away with this. Oh, what, like Homeless Stew getting away with killing Charlie? No, he didn't get away with it. He served his time.
Right.
He did the opposite of getting away with it.
Right. What is going on here? Do people not understand how the law works?
Well, this guy seemingly doesn't.
And like, if my friend had been murdered and somebody was convicted of it and went down for it, I would be on top of that the whole time and be well aware when that person got out. Because that would be important to me to know when that person got out of jail.
Even after 27 years?
Well, if I believe that he murdered someone, and I know statistically that murderers tend to murder again once they get out, yeah. I'd want to know where they were.
I think I'd have probably cared about that for maybe 3 years. And then I'm like, oh, do you know what? This is just too much like hard work.
Caring and empathy are hard work for you?
For another couple of decades, yeah. I've made my peace with this. I've moved on. Sorry, any friends of mine who've been murdered in the last 27 years.
Didn't you have a friend who got murdered? A schoolmate of yours got murdered.
No, he was the one who did the murdering.
Oh, that's right. You went to school with a murderer.
Interestingly, I'm concerned about where he is. I'm not really.
I did have that one teacher that disappeared and they never found the body.
Maybe there was no body to find.
Right. Maybe he just disappeared for other reasons.
Just didn't want to be found. And if he worked in your school, I can see why.
Shame on you.
So, So he's dumped this box of cockroaches all over Speed Daal. And it's enough to send the birthday party packing. Not even Alya's offer of free lassies is enough to keep them.
Right. Even though, they know that the cockroaches weren't there beforehand and haven't gotten to the kitchen yet. And are just teeny tiny bugs that have been swept up. It's not like they're venomous snakes.
They're horrible things, though.
And this is coming from someone who had... who, as a child, was traumatized when vacationing at her grandmother's house in Florida, opened her suitcase, and a palmetto bug jumped right at me. And it was like this big.
Do you always refer to yourself in the third person when you're telling terrifying stories of
Yes,
of bugs?
Because it helps me to separate myself from the terror.
Clearly. And how long have you felt this way?
Since it happened when I was 12.
At home, Glenda takes the piss out of Sean for Lawrence standing him up. Then Lawrence comes in and Sean gives him one out. He says, look, if you're not that into me, just say so, because, by the way, I'm a catch. And there's a sound of millions of viewers in the UK just spitting their tea out at that point. But apparently Lawrence has lost his phone and doesn't know Sean's number off by heart. Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, he's like, sorry, we haven't been together long enough for me to have memorized your number.
Or to be called a significant other.
Also, who memorizes numbers these days? You just plug it into your cell phone and then hit the name.
So he couldn't tell him that he wasn't going to be able to make the lunch. He says he fancies the pants off of Sean and the two of them winch on the couch.
Do you think anybody ever calls him Larry?
Lawrence?
Yeah.
No, he's definitely a Lawrence, isn't he? A nice guy. I think he's a good character.
He's all right.
I don't know what on the earth he's doing with Sean. What did you make of the age of the guy? The guy with the cockroaches? Because I'm watching this and he's announcing that he's a friend of Charlie's. And I'm thinking, really? Because Charlie
died 30 years ago.
Died 30 years ago and was maybe in her 20s. I don't know.
Right.
So you look about 35.
Right.
So
and
you were 5 years old. But looking at it again, he looked a little bit older, but apparently the actor is 49, 50, which I'm like, wow, that's because you don't have a bit of grey in your beard or your hair. You don't look like you've had an easy paper round, but I wouldn't have said that you were 50 years old. You didn't look older than me. Actors
do tend to dye their hair.
But would you dye your beard?
Yeah.
You'd have to dye it all the time.
They have the little brushes that you can get with just for men.
Oh, who can be bothered doing that?
I'm glad you don't, because you're dead sexy with a grey beard.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The whole Charlie murder timeline story. It's got holes big enough to drive a Mack truck through, and this is just adding on to it.
Because his daughter doesn't look that old either. So
the daughter, I would imagine, was still quite young when it happened.
So
that's okay.
So not the murderer then.
Right. Probably.
Because that was your main suspect, remember?
I thought it was the mother who I thought.
No, you were the daughter and the mother was covering it up.
No, I think the mother is covering it up after that conversation.
I think it's the copper.
And the copper was having the affair with Stu's wife.
I do like that, but I think it was the copper that did it.
Well, we're right. But the copper did it because he was having an affair with Stu's wife.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's...
Although one would think that you would want Stu's love interest to stay alive so that maybe he will leave his wife for her. And then you could, unless he was planning on bumping Stu off as well.
Well, it was an interesting point of having the copper definitely having an affair and then not mention who the affair was with. Mm-hmm. So that is suspicious in soaps,
it open.
Right?
Right,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Like you don't mention who it was because that's going to be important later
I don't know.
on.
It's just that and the whole, people, including random teenagers on the street.
Random teenagers reading the Weather Gazette online.
And caring
is difficult to believe.
That's a guy who went to prison for murdering someone 30 years ago.
So let's taunt him into murdering us?
Let's get him off the streets because he murdered someone 30 years ago.
Do you know, this kind of just feels to me like they've dug themselves into a hole here by making them in jail for 3 decades.
Right. And then how long was he on the street? Because again, it seemed like he had been on the street for quite some time. He was experienced on the street, you know, and knew how to get around and which dumpsters were the best to get food out of and stuff. And then just, yeah, I think you're right. I think they've just kind of dug their hole with the storyline, and it's just...
I'm confused about the daughter's age. I'm confused about this guy's age. I'm still a little, despite your wonderfully detailed explanation, I'm still a bit concerned about where he got all these cockroaches at such short notice and who he was on the phone to.
Well, you can buy cockroaches to feed your lizards
Buy
at
the
the
box.
pet store. Yeah. But how do you empty that box into this big wooden box and not have the cockroaches run out before you get a chance? And how did he keep them inside that box the whole time he was eating his meal? And where did he keep that box? Did nobody say, why do you have this big black box with you?
See, I thought you left and came back. I thought that was what happened.
I don't think so. It seemed like he got up from his seat and walked right over. The whole scene was weird.
I mean, it was funny. I enjoyed it as a spectacle, but the attributes of it
Just
didn't
the
make
way
an awful lot of
everybody
sense for me.
reacts on the table, I was like, he's got Charlie's head in there. And then I was like, maybe it's rats? But no, it's teeny tiny cockroaches.
Mm-hmm.
Rats would be easier to keep in a box because there are fewer of them because they're bigger than cockroaches.
What was the show that the guy had the thing in the matchbox and he kept on showing people and they freaked out? I think it might have been a British comedy show, British sitcom.
That sounds familiar. And
Yeah.
was it like a finger or something?
It was an old man that had kept something in a matchbox. It wasn't Only Fools and Horses, I don't think.
Yeah, I just remember in the children's story, A Cricket in Times Square, that the little boy kept his pet cricket in a matchbox.
It was Last of the Summer Wine.
And what did the old man have in that matchbox?
You never found out
Oh,
because
plot twist.
as soon as Compo showed Nora Batty, who had wrinkly tights, what was in his matchbox, invariably all the old people that were in the show would be in a bathtub going down a hill at high speed. And that show ran for like 90 years. There is a Pinterest board for what's in Compo's matchbox that I advise nobody
What is wrong with the people in your country?
to look at. Well, there's not much to do. Moving on to our next storyline tonight is things to do in Gretna when you're deaf. It's not bad.
That's the best one so far.
Thanks. And there are no fun facts in this segment either.
You
On
don't have
Monday-
a fun fact about Dev's weird lime green baseball cap that has a P on it?
No, but it is going to be mentioned at length later. On Monday at the Rose Gold Flat, Liam and I'm going to say Jake spot Kelly's laptop and see that she's been vogling Gretna Green.
Well, it's because they're fighting over the Xbox. And so in order to get them to stop fighting, Kelly says to the blonde one, here, you can watch videos on my laptop and I'll beat the brown-haired one's butt at this game,
Right.
is what happened.
Yeah, that's quite funny because Maria calls them brothers at one point and they go, no, we're not.
Yeah. I mean, technically they're
Oh, technically, they're not brothers.
stepbrothers because their parents are married to one another. Because Jake is Gary's kid and Liam is Maria's kid, and Maria and Gary are married, so they're stepbrothers.
Yeah, but they're not brothers.
Well, who says step? Who? What?
They're not blood.
What sort of asshole says stepbrothers instead of just brothers?
She's been vogling Gretna Green, and she covers by saying that she's off up there to watch their football team. Gretna do have a football team. Do you know what they're called?
The Gretna Greens,
Gretna.
because that's what Kelly says. That Gretna Green is
Yeah,
a football team.
They're just called Gretna. Later,
That's boring.
The boys reveal this dull fact to Maria and Gary, who quickly put two and two together. Maria thinks that even if Aadi is Kelly's love of her life, and even if she does deserve some happiness, it's unlikely to last. Gary worries that by putting their foot down on this, they're going to drive her away. And earlier we learned that Kelly's house has been sold for $380,000.
Yes.
And I was a little surprised that she didn't know that she wasn't the one to find that out. It was Gary that found that out and told her.
Well, she's still not of age. So as her legal guardian, Gary would be handling that, one would think.
Yeah, it's kind of her house, and I would have thought that maybe the letter would have been addressed to her. But anyway.
She doesn't fucking care about it, though.
They approach Kelly and Aadi about this, and surprisingly, they give their blessing to the union. Maria's odd condition is that if they ever fall out of love, they communicate this with each other. And actually, coming from Maria, that makes perfect sense. Gary kind of bullies Aadi by calling him a wuss for not telling Dev, so Aadi proves that he's a man after all by moving back in with his dad, which means that Jake can move into the rose gold flat, I guess.
Well, he was already moved in, because they had already said beforehand that Jake was moving in as well.
Yeah, so it's cramped now.
Was Jake always blonde?
I don't know.
I don't remember him being blonde.
I don't remember ever seeing him.
We have seen him with his mum, with Izzy.
When was the last time we saw her?
It's been too long.
So
The last
quite a while away.
time was with
It was on video.
yeah.
On Wednesday, Dev has a brand new green baseball cap with a P on it, and he's very, very happy about this.
It's lime green.
Calling
even.
himself a trendsetter. Aadi comes down the stairs and
I'm
has
so
news for
confused.
Dev with his new green baseball cap with a P on it, but he's going to be late for his tea time, so it'll need to keep. Back at the Rose Gold flat, Kelly batters Aadi when she discovers that he bottled out of telling Dev. She reckons it'll help if she's there, though fuck knows why, so that's what they decide to do. Back at Dev's, he's back from a nightmare of a round of golf, and not even his brand new green baseball cap with a P on it is going to put him in a good mood.
Right, because it's gotten run over by a cart,
Yeah.
and it's all muddy and flat.
Deciding, fuck it, how much angrier can he be? Aadi and Kelly decide to tell him anyway. We're getting married, hurrah! And it turns out Dev can be much angrier, accusing Kelly of being a drug addict, a revenge porn distributor, a criminal, and a basket case. Basically, all of them out at the Breakfast Club. Kelly takes issue with this despite it all being true, until sensible Asha orders her dad to go for a walk, young man, and you calm down.
Right.
And that's what Dev does.
Yeah, because Dev once again and then freaks out about money and then explains that I have no money because I'm still keeping your sister's naked body off the internet.
Yeah, which apparently is done in monthly installments or something. He bought Aadi a car a couple of weeks ago, so
Yeah.
money can't be that tight.
He can't be that tight. No.
Later, Asha reckons that Dev will come round eventually and just needs to get used to the idea. Kelly, whose first idea today has been a total fuckfest, has another one. Let's prove our commitment by throwing a massive engagement party. That won't rub it in Dev's face at all, and it's sure to bring him round. Aadi's already blinkered, so agrees. Gary and Dev end up having drinks in the Rovers. Dev points out that Kelly isn't his, so he can't really know what this is like, but sensible Gary suggests that they're going to get married whether Dev likes it or not, and he can either get on board with it or lose the argument and his son in one go. Dev, though, can't be persuaded. So Gary goes back round to his house. It's still weird seeing him in that house. To tell him that he's tried to talk to Dev round, but to no avail. Kelly and Aadi tell him that they've decided to postpone the wedding until they're 18, and they're going to have a massive engagement party instead. Gary approves, but when Dev comes home and they eventually tell him, he's less than happy and refuses to pay for it, advising Aadi to get a prenup. Kelly informs him that she's independently wealthy, thanks very much, so fuck you very much, and maybe she should get the prenup.
Maybe she should be the one to demand a prenup.
Dev calls this ridiculous and refuses to give his blessing. On Thursday, Kelly is dressed ready for court in another storyline when Gary surprises her with the menu for her engagement party, which he and Maria are going to pay for, but Kelly is determined to pay for it herself. Gary calls her part of the family, and they hug while Maria kind of watches on like Marge. Later in Nina's roles, Kelly has a look.
It's a very good Marge
Thank
impersonation.
you. Kelly has a look at the guest list that Aadi and Asha have been dreaming up, and she gives them a hard time when there are hardly any names in it, and decides to publicise it on the social media, like all those stories you hear where parties that have been publicised on the social media get out of hand and people die. Later, back at the Rose Gold flat, Gary has a package for Kelly. She's ordered
And I like that.
7 outfits for her engagement party.
Right. She's gonna do costume changes throughout the night as if she was a presenter at an awards ceremony.
Gary encourages her to try them on, and while she's gone, Maria finally lets her true feelings come out about the wedding and the engagement party, which Kelly overhears because she doesn't think this is a great idea. It's a waste of money, and this is going to last maybe 5 minutes. Gary separates himself from Maria's views, saying that he thinks that her and Aadi are the real deal, and Maria's really confused of why you thrown me under the bus here. Kelly's still in a bad mood about this and the other storyline later. Gary tries to cheer her up and remind her of all the people who care for her, but this makes Kelly think of how few people actually know her. So when Gary leaves, she whips out her phone, and it looks like she's given her friend Sharon a call. And that's as far as we get with that. Not Sharon Bentley. Sharon, heavy Sharon. This was bound to happen.
Yeah.
That Sharon, the whole Sharon character hasn't really been dealt with, has been a lingering collector of information in the storyline that if she wasn't going to come back, she would have had to been dealt with at some point.
Right.
She hasn't been dealt with it at any point. Although she had
she was there.
She was in cahoots with Gary, right? The two of them were.
She was aware that Kelly's mum died and that Kelly's mum took the fall for killing Kelly's dad.
Because she approached Gary about it.
Right.
Because I think Kelly had tried to contact her as well. And didn't she contact her when she was giving the money away and and stuff like that? So she'd been kind of on the periphery of this storyline for a while.
Sharon was quite upset that Gary was letting her do it. And Sharon was the one who told Gary what Kelly was doing. My
concern, as far as Gary's concerned here, is what is to stop Sharon from grassing Gary up now?
Well, why would she do that?
Well, why wouldn't she? Because her allegiance is with Rick the Chin. Well, and her allegiance is with Kelly.
Yeah, her allegiance, it feels like her allegiance is for Kelly because she didn't necessarily mind that Rick was dead. She was more concerned about how that would affect Kelly because she's known Kelly her whole life.
Yeah, and how
Kelly's whole life.
it's going to affect her as well.
Right.
So it's interesting that and hearing Maria's thoughts on it, Gary's kind of forced to make her feel better about herself and all the people who know her. And this is a kind of wake-up call to her. Well, actually, nobody really knows me here. The only people that really know me is Sharon.
Right.
Sharon's the only one that knows me pre-Rick the Chin and Laura the Chin kind of days and pre-Gary days.
Right.
So that's probably what's dropped the idea into her head. But this is...
Still, it's weird that they're doing this guest list and they don't have very many people on it. And she's like, oh, well, I guess I don't know very many people. You'd think Aadi would know more people. This is Aadi's guest list as well. And he doesn't pipe up and say, well, I'll compensate with all of my people.
Now, I paused it, obviously, when we saw our contacts list.
Right.
Summer's not on it.
No. But Summer is on the guest list.
Which isn't a surprise that Summer's not on it. Ryan's on it. And Stephen's on it. Now, I'm assuming that there's a different Ryan and it's a different Stephen.
It's definitely got to be a different Stephen.
Why on earth would you have Audrey's son in our phone?
I can see maybe Ryan. Because he's not that much older than the kids. Is he?
Good 10 years older than her.
I think he's 28. Yeah, okay, 28.
Maybe, if not already in his 30s.
No, he looks good for his age.
Yeah, a handsome man by any measure.
Yes. Yeah, and wasn't there a Thomas?
There was a Thomas, and there was no Stu, so I was assuming that he was filed under homeless Stu.
Right. Yeah, we need to scroll down a little bit further, maybe.
No, because then we're on to T's.
If they're in alphabetical order, maybe they're in...
It's an alphabetical order. It's a phone, Helen.
Can't you change how your names are sorted?
You can just agree with me. It's fine.
I'm not
going to think any worse of you. And I'm not going to take this as a precedent that you're going to agree with everything. But it's alphabetical order.
I will agree with nothing.
It's an alphabetical order.
I don't know. never makes sense because remember Abby's phone list didn't have Sally on
Oh,
it
it
or
had like
something.
3 people on it.
Right. So it's maybe they need to be more careful when it comes to set design and stuff on this show because there are people like you who are zooming in and making screenshots.
There's a moment later on where Alya knows Glenda by name. Like, when did they ever get introduced to each other?
Well, with the cockroaches.
No, that's before that happens. Glenda comes running out,
Uh-huh.
and Alya knows her name. Dev not given his blessing. He seems kind of entrenched in his position here.
He really is.
Of kind of being an asshole about it.
Right. I mean, I guess I can kind of understand him still being resentful about the whole Asha thing.
Right.
Especially if he's still paying some swindler on the internet for keeping it off. I would think at this point, the way things age on the internet, I think at this point he'd be safe. If it's been taken off and it's been wiped off.
Well, at what point do you stop paying that? Does Asha continue to pay this after Dev's dead? Probably not.
No.
So it's been like a couple of years.
Right.
At
this point, does it really matter?
Asha
that
doesn't seem to
much.
care that much anyway.
She's quite happy and
just
content
kinda
in her
happy, right?
relationship with Nina.
Yeah,
And ITV Corey's in jail.
right. You seem to be avoiding the front of the microphone for some reason.
It's right here.
I don't know why it's
It's kind of angled
bent
weird.
out of shape a little bit.
Yeah. So, yeah. And again, you pointed out he's acting like he has no money, and yet he just bought Aadi a car.
It's Schrodinger's money. It exists in that box and doesn't exist in that box.
I really
depending on the plot point.
liked Kelly standing up for herself and saying, "Well, actually,
Right.
we don't need your frickin' money, Gramps.
Yeah.
I'm independently wealthy."
And I was surprised that I didn't get a reaction out of Dev, because Dev is the sort of person that would react to that. She's independently wealthy.
It did seem to kind of shut him up a little bit because it does kind of counteract this whole idea he has that she's after Aadi's money for some reason, or Aadi's potential money when he becomes the kingpin of all of Dev's businesses
Yeah.
someday. And yet he has no money.
All I think I know, just to finish this bit off, is we're kind of careering towards the end of Kelly.
Yeah.
Or Kelly in the show, and
Makes me sad.
And I genuinely don't have any idea of where it's going from this point. It's like, is it the party? Is that going to be a major point? I don't know. They seem to be making it a major point. I don't think they're going to go to Gretna, because that
because
would
they've
require
already
them to.
they've already said that they weren't, that
Right.
they were going to wait until they were 18.
Right.
Which poor Aadi. It's Aadi I feel sorry for the most.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, moving on to our next story is Glenda behind bars, and this is where we're going to have our fun fact. On Wednesday, I feel like I've maybe made too much of a big deal about this, and it's not going to be a fun fact, or you're going to have questions that I don't have answers to.
Well, we'll see.
On Wednesday, Sean is dressed as a children's TV presenter when Glenda bursts in looking for a cuppa and stealing Eileen's biscuits.
Yeah, he's wearing a onesie, isn't he?
Glenda's bought a pamper kit and offers to wax Eileen's toes for her. In the pub, Eileen has had quite enough of Glenda in the house, plus she doesn't even have hairy toes.
Right, and why is Glenda staying in the house when the Undertaker has this big, massive house that nobody's living in?
I think, well, she came in, so she was...
So she was somewhere else. So she must be staying at the big, massive house. So why is Eileen so mad that she visits occasionally?
I think it's maybe more than occasionally, and I think maybe that's the
Or
problem.
maybe she just really likes those granola bars and is mad that Glenda keeps eating her granola bars that she hides from people and then Sean finds and then gives to Glenda.
Eileen says that she can't get peace in her own house, and George promises to have a word with his sister.
Oh, really? It's Glenda's fault you can't have peace in your house, Eileen?
So
Maybe you should stop inviting people to live with you, Eileen.
So he goes home and finds Glenda covered in Eileen's cucumbers, but not like that. Cleansing her aura. he gently tries to encourage her to be less of an annoying thief, and for some reason Glenda's nose is put out of joint and she storms out. And she storms to Nina's Rolls to complain to Sean about George and Eileen. Glenda sees Eileen's point though and is bored out of her tits, so Sean mentions that Jenny will be looking for help at the Rovers, and given Glenda's history of working with hospitality, promises to have a word for her. Later in the Rovers, Glenda is regaling Jenny and particularly Gemma with stories from cruise ships. Apparently one time a sequined Shirley Bassey was winched down onto the ship from a helicopter.
Yes.
Now,
What is it about old British ladies and helicopters?
how is the word helicopter constructed?
What do you mean? The heli and the copter?
Well, there you go, because it isn't heli and copter. So things like helipad are wrongly named.
It should be helio.
It's helico and ter. The PTER is from pterodactyl, essentially. It's
It's
flying.
from the same root
Right.
word as pterodactyl.
So it shouldn't be helipad, it should be helicopad. That's the fun fact.
I think I would prefer that. I think helicopad sounds fun.
I think it does sound good.
I must be rushed to the hospital on a helicopter, and we will land on the hospital's helicopad before I die.
So, where do we get to?
I don't know.
Jenny lets Glenda loose on the pumps, and she makes an absolute hoor of a mess of it, wasting 2 pints and breaking a glass. Jenny quickly realises that Glenda's full of shite. George comes in and gets wind of this and makes a plea for his sister, reckoning a little bit of training will make Glenda a hard-working and loyal employee, and Jenny falls for it and gives Glenda a trial with Gemma as her mentor. God help us all.
Yes.
That's
and
as far as
God
we get with
bless
that.
us, everyone.
So this is basically Glenda finding her place and where she's going to be in the hierarchy of the show, and I think sticking her in the Rovers is probably
It's brilliant.
stroke of genius, right? Because then she's
Yes.
like Jenny and kind of like Gemma at the moment, where she can get involved at a low level on practically every storyline.
Yes. I approve of this message.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Moving on, our next storyline, our penultimate storyline, is Ryan's Nest.
Wow, already?
On Thursday, what do you mean already? We've been doing this for seemingly forever. On Thursday, Alya is preparing Speed Daal for a meal in another storyline when Matt appears. I had to... Who's he again?
He's the guy
he's
who...
the sales guy,
Yeah,
right?
he's a sales guy who wants to get in Alya's pants.
Yeah, and he appears to whisk her off for a surprise lunch. But it's not much of a surprise because they go to the bistro. Matt gives her flowers, which she, rather cruelly, I thought, asks Ryan to take care of.
Yeah, that rubbed me the wrong way as well.
Oh, Ryan, can you take care of these lovely flowers for me, please? Fuck off. Take care of your own fucking flowers. I'm going to piss in these. And you're only going to find out about it days later when they're all dead and stinking of my piss.
It's filled with cockroaches.
Right.
In another storyline.
Yeah. But to be fair, he does take them away, and then he gets to the bar, and Ronnie, who seems to be the executive sponsor for Ryan's Love Life, asks him if is she the one.
We got a lot of Ronnie this week.
Ryan admits
I approve.
that she is, and he has to do something about it. He tries to accost her in the street, but the drama from another storyline with cockroaches interrupts him. So later, he gets a word with Alya and tells her that after the theft and all that sort of stuff, he's worried that he's lost his chance with her. She tells him that he lost his chance with her as soon as he was sexually assaulted by Daisy. And that's as far as that goes.
And he says this to her he right after he witnesses her smooching the mat.
Right.
Yeah. Not the greatest timing there, Ryan.
No, and I think maybe that ship has now officially sailed, which is a shame because I did like those two kids together.
I think there's still a chance.
You think?
Yeah. I do. I think why else is Ryan not in prison?
And still on the show?
Right. If not to get back together with Alya, because we all know.
I think he's got more chance with Ronnie at the moment. Which wouldn't be bad.
Would he be a throuple with Ronnie and Debbie? There was a bit of chemistry with him and Debbie when they were plotting to steal from the bistro.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that could work. Let me just picture it in my head first.
Oh dear, I think the term is spit roast.
There is spit involved. I'll give you that.
None of
Moving
this is making the cut.
Oh no.
Our final storyline tonight is Undercover Spider.
Is it?
Yep. On Monday, it's morning in Leanne's newly redecorated flat that I haven't got used to yet. Leanne wants to take Toyah out for breakfast, but Toyah has a date, kinda, with Griff.
I'm confused every time. Like, where are they?
I know.
I don't understand where this is.
And Griff is definitely interested in Toyah, I think. Anyway, we learn that the trial is next week, which I think is this week, by the way that the episodes have fallen. And indeed it is. Outside later, Leanne has a go at Spider for hurting Toyah and then pushing her away into the arms of Griff. Leanne doesn't trust Griff as far as she could throw him at PC Tinker's head. Spider promises to have a word. Later, Peter bumps into Toyah and they talk about the situation with the protest and how Carla hates Griff as well. Peter and Toyah both fancy the rascal, and Toyah opens up to Peter and lets her guard down, and they hug just as Syra rolls onto the street in her fancy Range Rover. She's here to see Alfie, but doesn't let the chance to verbally abuse Toyah and call her a murderer slip through her fingers.
And a slut.
She accuses Toyah of having a fancy man, thinking this is motive for killing Imran.
Right, and thinks Peter is her fancy man, which is hilarious.
And he's next to useless standing there, but then Griff comes along and he overcompensates and tells Syra that they don't take kindly to her sort in these parts, and tells Syra to do one, and no one says anything to Griff about this kind of racist language that he was using against her.
Yeah, he means wealthy, but he's saying this to a brown lady, so it comes across as very, very racist.
Yeah, I was thinking that I'm not inclined for any reason to give him the benefit of the doubt, but if I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt, and I'm thinking that he's not being racist here, the changes that would have to be made to that line to make it racist would be 0 words.
Yeah. And I think that's just kind of in the back of my head anyway, because a governor in this country just shoved a whole bunch of immigrants onto an airplane and sent them to Martha's Vineyard without their permission.
Yeah, I'm not sure how you are allowed to do that.
You're not.
You're kind of trafficking.
You're trafficking
to score
human
a political
beings.
point, which doesn't seem right. But anyway, this is not a politics podcast.
It is not.
Yeah, it's a strange phrase to use, and it becomes stranger when nobody says anything about it.
Right.
And I would just rather that they'd found a different way of saying that.
Well, let's just remember how this particular soap opera tends to deal with racism to begin with.
Well, where's PC Tinker to sort all this out? That's what I'm asking. Toyah, Peter and Griff retire to Nina's roles. Griff still has a racist handful of racist sand down his racist foreskin about Syra. Toyah is more understanding considering that she killed Imran, but Peter is quick to point out that it was an accident. Then comes Spider, who joins him, and Griff comes up with the idea of letting down Sarah's tyres on her flash motor. Spider warns against this, which makes Toyah decide
A hate crime.
that she's in. Yeah, right.
Do you think Griff is a Gryffindor?
No. But later in the gunnel, Griff reveals his real plan, which is to blow Cyrus' car up just as soon as his KKK outfit is back from the dry cleaners. Spider makes his excuses and leaves.
Right. It's like if the show really wanted to show him not actually being racist, but being against people who are wealthy, maybe blowing up her car, a literal hate crime, is not the way to go.
In a residential area.
Right.
So, Spider goes straight round to Toyah's to warn her that Griff is taking things too far. Toyah wonders why Spider cares, and he blurts out that he loves her again. And yes, he's married, but it's complicated. And he tells her a story of a woman that he met in South America. Aunt Lucy, I think her name was. But
her name was Layla.
But she's not been seen in yonks.
Because she decided to marry Eric Clapton instead.
He's not seen her in yonks because she's an Eric Clapton song. He loves Toyah, it's only ever been her, and he asks her to leave Syra out of this and to drop the plan to let the air out of her tyres. Toyah needs to know that she's not the other woman. He confirms that's the case, and they smooch on the balcony, where their hot action is spotted, obviously, by Syra. And she heads straight to the cop shop, where she tells DS Blondie that Toyah is kissing and cuddling Spider, which proves that he killed Imran. DS Blondie doesn't think this is really proof, but seems interested at the mention of Spider's name. And I'm like, here we go. Here we go.
It's kind of ridiculous that Spider and Toyah are having this conversation about how they need to keep their relationship under wraps for the time being, and then kiss on an open balcony in front of the whole street.
Right. While Toyah goes to tell Griff that he'll have to let the air out of Syra's tyres on his own, there's a clandestine, week-ending scene in the alleyway of doom where DS Blondie approaches Spider and calls him Detective Constable Spider.
Well, week-ending for you.
Spider says that he's working a case, but Blondie is worried that he's going against the ethical book by having a relationship with a mark. She tells him to get the dirt from Toyah on what really happened, else she's going to grass him right up. And I'm like, I've been saying this for weeks.
Isn't it great when you're right?
To be fair, they made it kind of obvious at the end, right?
Yeah.
But interesting now that it's a thing.
Right.
If you'd known Spider from 20 odd years ago, there's no way in the world that he's a copper. And we've got to wonder where he's been in Peru, which is why he was shagging Aunt Lucy. And
he claimed he was in Peru.
I know he was. So, because he was with Emily, and Emily was in Peru.
Right.
So, where does he find the time to become a policeman at this point in his life?
Well, he does say that things went sour with Layla because he saw the dark side of protesting.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's when he decided to become an undercover cop.
People just decide to become undercover cops. Yeah. I guess Craig did, right?
Right. Well, Craig doesn't get to be a detective, remember?
No. Because I think of the laughter that
Can you imagine Craig being undercover? He can't even say Talladega Nights.
That's a strange requirement to become a detective. To be able to accurately pronounce the back catalogue of Will Ferrell. Fair enough.
Or famous racing tracks in America for the NASCAR.
The thing that gets me with Sofa Cinema Club, because yes, that's what we're talking about, is how he says www.sofacinemaclub.com. And it's like, it's a pet peeve of mine. That people
is he still living in the 1990s?
No, that people get bored saying www and just say www.
Who needs to even say www anymore?
It's like saying, you don't have to type it in.
It's like saying / semicolon.
http : /
right.
www. Anyway, on Wednesday,
Talladega.
Toyah is pretty low as she receives advice from her lawyer and seems keen to veg out on the couch all day, but it's a new couch, so Leanne doesn't want her oozing onto it, so decides to set about giving her something to take her mind off things. So later, when Abby comes into the bistro with Alfie for no reason, Leanne asks her if Toyah could look after the kid for a while. Abby agrees, and even though Toyah smells a rat, she's left to look after him while Abby eats cakes and drinks coffee. Just don't run off to Costa Rica with him, says Abby. What, too soon? Weatherfield is her oyster, but Toyah takes Alfie to the community garden where she meets an apologetic Kelly. She knows Toyah is innocent in that, and she's dreading court tomorrow with no Imran to save the day. Alright, cheerio then. Kelly leaves and Toyah has a moment of weeping reflection, which a passing Gemma spots. Toyah blames it on her hay fever. Privately, Toyah hopes Alfie will be able to forgive her for what she's done. And that was a bit of ominous as well. Then Abby appears and Toyah hands the kid over before rushing off, upset.
That kid's a giant.
Mm-hmm.
That kid has a massive head. Where did this kid get a massive head from?
What a horrible thing you said for a wee baby.
Baby is not wee. He's gigantic. I feel so sorry for Abby.
That's why she didn't cycle home from the hospital.
He was so wee at first, and now he's enormous.
Kelly says he's Imran's double. Really? Okay. Let's not investigate that too much.
No.
Meanwhile, Gemma has gone to the bistro to warn Leanne that she saw Toyah, and Toyah was upset. In a secluded area, Spider meets up with DS Blondie, who is again demanding the gossip on Toyah. Spider insists that Toyah isn't a murderer. Blondie says that's exactly what a murderer would say. And then Spider takes a call from Leanne, who can't get a hold of her sister. Spider promises to find her, and he must find her because next we see that they're back at the flat when a distraught Toyah tells Spider that he deserves to hear the truth, and she reveals that it wasn't an accident. She deliberately crashed the car and murdered Imran. Leanne is outside the flat and overhears this.
Right, and she does kind of imply that she was trying to murder herself as well.
Yeah.
In that, like, she wanted to end everything.
Yeah, at that moment she didn't care if either of them lived.
Right. And it feels like that. Feels like in this whole storyline that's kind of glossed over, isn't it? That she tried to kill herself. Mm-hmm. Everybody is so focused on the Imran part.
Who, let's remember, didn't die in the car crash.
No, he died of a heart attack after, beating up the car to get Toyah out and overexerting himself when he's just been in a car crash.
Let's call the car crash a contributing factor,
right.
Certainly. But the way that this is all kind of getting talked about is Toyah seems to think that he did die in the car crash,
right.
and she's directly responsible for it. And I think at most she's indirectly responsible for it. Mm-hmm. And it's probably not murder. It's probably manslaughter, if anything.
Yeah.
Which nobody seems to be acknowledging at all.
No.
Anyway.
There are very few legal experts on the show.
And I'm not a legal expert either, but it's like for murder it has to be premeditated and...
Well...
Oh, it does. For first degree, premeditated murder, and it's not really premeditated.
No. If you're just angry and you're also trying...
If you're angry in the heat of the moment.
Right, and you're also trying to do not just murder, but also suicide.
Yeah. If she had got into the car with the intention of killing Imran, then that very much is first degree murder. Right,
but she doesn't learn about the things that will make her want to kill Imran until they were already in the car.
Correct. So anyway, Leanne bursts in while Spider runs away, saying that he can't listen to any of this. Leanne is just as shocked and demands answers. Toyah explains that she didn't get in the car with the intention of killing anyone. It wasn't until that he admitted that he'd lied in court and had been caught. She lost her mind for a split second. She didn't care if either of them lived or died, and she crashed into that building. And there were so many lies that Imran was telling.
Yeah.
Leanne is furious to learn this on the eve of the trial. She's took money out of her business to pay for lawyers, for goodness sake, and reckons that Syra has lost her only remaining child thanks to Toyah, and Alfie has lost his dad. Disgusted, Leanne storms out. And of course she goes to the community garden, and there she's met by Peter. And they get talking about the trial, and Peter reveals that, all that baby Susie stuff, he's forgiven Toyah about all of that. And Leanne can't imagine how you would do that, but Peter thinks that Toyah is probably the best person that he knows.
Lots of Peter this week.
Yeah. So Leanne goes back with a new positive spin, insisting that Toyah didn't know what she was doing. It was an accident. She didn't mean to kill anyone when she got behind the wheel. This is just guilt talking. But Toyah insists that she was driving full of hate, and that makes her responsible. She thanks Leanne for sticking by her, but Spider knows it wasn't an accident and knows that she's guilty. And then we see Spider now. He's the one in the community garden, and he's dinging Toyah's calls and looking all conflicted and stuff. Then on Thursday in the community garden, Toyah's trying and failing to get a hold of Spider on the phone, but Leanne is more concerned that she's going to say something stupid in court. At the court, her barrister, Meghan Markle, encourages her to tell the truth. Toyah goes to get some air, which allows Leanne to express her worries about Toyah and her desire to be punished. And she floats the idea of not putting Toyah on the stand, which the barrister would go for if Toyah is hell-bent on incriminating herself. So Leanne tells Toyah about this, telling her that after all of her and all that shite, she's not prepared to let Toyah go to prison. And in the court, though, Toyah is adamant that she is going to testify. She is loaded into her wee glass box as the judge comes in, along with the stereotypically harsh-looking prosecution lady barrister, who I thought was the same barrister that we'd had when
Kelly
was getting...
Maybe.
Or Yasmin.
I was annoyed by her hair.
Right.
The fact that she had these two little tendrils coming out from underneath her wig. That just seems dumb.
Good point. Well made.
Thank you.
Adam is first up, confirming to the prosecution that he heard Toyah tell Leanne that she would kill Imran if he's lying to her again. The defence barrister quickly gets Adam to confirm that it's a figure of speech. So that was worthwhile, Adam. Ya total wank. I mean, who doesn't know that that's just a figure of speech? And he's reluctant to say that he's used that himself.
Right, yeah. He's like, well, when I use it, it's a figure of speech. But she was really angry that night.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, you use that when you're angry.
Right. Next up is Kelly, who tells the prosecution that on the day he died, Imran was determined to tell Toyah the truth about lying about Abby being a junkie so that he could get his hands on Alfie. During a break, Imran's mum tells Toyah that she should have been the one who died, and after this, Toyah confesses to her barrister about shagging Spider after Imran died. Spider's whereabouts are unknown at this time, but Toyah reckons that he's in that London. Let's hope he stays there. Meanwhile, Spider isn't in London. He's in the alleyway of doom, telling DS Blondie that he and Toyah have split up, and DS Blondie reckons that must be because of this bombshell, some sort of bombshell revelation. Spider says nothing, but looks like he might be about to spill his guts. So we don't hear him say anything, but we don't hear him say nothing.
Correct.
So it's kind of, is he going to tell Blondie?
I don't
and
know.
Why is Blondie still investigating this while
If
the
their
trial is
going on? Yeah, that really kind of confused me. Why she would even still care. She's right that this whole thing is unethical, though.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah, she would nowhere near this.
No. Even if she's not the mark that he's investigating.
Because I'm assuming that it's Griff that he's
You mean the
investigating.
guy who wants to blow up a woman's car?
Yes.
Yeah.
The racist guy that wants to blow up the brown woman's car.
Yes.
Back at court, it's Cyrus turn on the stand, and she tells the prosecution that Toyah was winched Spider, and if she had to guess, she'd suggest that this was an affair that had been going on for years, and that Toyah was plotting to kill Imran. Remarkably, this speculation goes unchallenged, but the defence gets Cyrus to admit that Imran hated her and wanted nothing to do with her, which saves the situation somewhat.
Right. Yeah. She's like, tell me again. Did you attend the wedding? Were you there for Alfie's birth?
Mm-hmm.
Why not? Did your children not cut you out of their lives?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of when the last time Imran did see her, and it was probably just after Rana.
No, because remember she did turn up. She turned up. Oh, no. No, that was Alya and Yasmin who wanted him to go to a religious ceremony with them. And he said, well, I'm not really a practicing Muslim.
Someone has decided to put Leanne on the stand. Who knows why? She explains away Adam's evidence, which has already been done, and then explains how lovely Toyah is, and how she forgave Imran for all his many mistakes and lies, and she was going to raise his baby with him. And during another break, Toyah is ready to crack and confess, and Leanne tells her that despite everything, she still has people who love her and has stuff to fight for. And then Toyah's on the stand now, telling her barrister, after a suitably dramatic pause and a kickstart from the judge, that after the crash, she had no memory of what happened, but now she's sure that they didn't talk about his lies in court, and she didn't learn about them until later from the voicemail, which she deleted because it sounded suspicious. But the prosecution focused on the timing, thinking it unlikely because of some ABBA lyrics or something. Toyah sticks to her guns, but looks a bit uncertain of herself when she blurts out that she didn't mean to kill Imran. So then the prosecution and the defence wrap up this super quick murder trial that's taken a day. All of the evidence is circumstantial, there's no proof of premeditation, and it sounds like there's sufficient reasonable doubt to ensure that Toyah isn't guilty, which probably means she'll get sentenced to death. And the jury must be thinking about it, or in other words, scamming a night in the hotel for free. So back home, Toyah is resigned to her fate and thinking again that she deserves it. She killed Imran, she says, no matter what the jury decides. And that is how we end this week's episodes. Quite a good trial, that. I enjoyed that.
Too short.
I was rushed, right?
And like, there is nobody talks about the evidence of the fact that, there are no skid marks.
On Imran's underpants?
And the
Imran's underpants. Good times.
I can't fantasize about anything else tonight. I'm sorry. I'm still thinking about the throuple. And now I can't remember what I was going to say.
There's no skid marks.
there's the CCTV footage and everything. You'd think somebody would have thought, hey, maybe it would be good to get a psych eval on Toyah for all of this, because this would have potentially have killed her as well. And maybe we can get her off for
and there
being...
should be some sort of forensic
Right.
stuff going on as well. This is very, very, very rushed.
Right. And
We have...
some of these, as you kind of pointed out, some of these witnesses are ridiculous.
What's Leanne doing? Because she seems to be the only person that the defence calls. Well, apart from Toyah.
Right. Yeah.
So if Toyah didn't go in the stand, the defence would be Leanne saying that she's my sister and she's nice.
Right. Yeah. You'd think that other people who knew them as a couple and were part of their circle.
But that's really got nothing to do with anything. It's what's the frame of mind and the
Right.
lead up to the accident.
Yes.
That's really what's at stake here.
So really there are no witnesses besides Toyah.
No, there aren't. This is why this is all circumstantial, because nobody can prove anything. Because
Right.
as Toyah says, you need to ask Imran that.
Except with the forensic evidence which proved that she didn't brake.
She didn't brake.
And there was nothing wrong with the car.
Right.
So why did you drive right into a building?
Well, she could have easily said that she had turned her head and she was arguing with him.
Right. She does perjure herself.
Yes. At the insistence of Leanne.
Right.
She says that she didn't hear anything in the car when the one thing that we knew
Is that she did.
was that she absolutely did.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think the storyline has been handled very well. Having like these gaps in it and
Yeah.
everything, and not having any sort of revelation about what Toyah's frame of mind was and why she did it until like the night before the trial. And even that's kind of sketchy because, as you pointed out, Imran didn't die in the car crash.
No, it's like we mentioned last week that they spent so much time outside of this story giving Toyah other things to do in her activism. Remember, was it July that she was stealing bin lorries? I think that was July. So like a couple of months ago, she was, so for that length of time, she's been involved in this kind of activism part of it, where this part of her storyline has kind of been forgotten about. And we were
Right.
at the point where if nobody mentions this, will it not happen?
And it just kind of fade away. And is that good for Imran's memory? We're already a little upset that Imran died not knowing what happened to his sister.
Yeah. And they
And
kinda,
other stuff.
They kind of make some to do about the fact that he rescued Toyah out the car. Is
Right,
that
yeah.
something that somebody would do
If they were terrified for their life.
Right.
Right. It's the way they let Imran's mom just kind of go on and on about
She
speculation about how Imran felt in the car and
None
how he
of-
must have been terrified.
Not anything that she said should have been
Admissible.
admissible at all.
No.
She actually shrugs her shoulders and says, well, I don't know. At some point, I guess so.
Right.
Well, we need to be dealing with a little bit more than shrugging your shoulders, and I guess so here, my dear.
Yes. Ugh.
I do think, though, that the Toyah and Leanne stuff was a bit of a highlight of the week. I kind of feel like Nick should have been there, though.
Nick wasn't there for his own grand's party the other week.
Well, he had the cold, remember?
So, yes.
He has been trying to deal with that terribly heavy cold that he had that one day,
Right. So,
I suppose.
it never makes sense who shows up to these things and who doesn't.
No.
Never. Ever, ever, ever. But, yeah, it feels like, again, it kind of feels like they painted themselves into a corner and weren't quite sure how to get out of it.
And then just rush it
Right.
so much. I mean,
And then add this whole spider thing onto it.
because even...
Because I like the spider stuff. Don't get me wrong. I like the spider stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I like the fact that he's this undercover cop and he's trying to get this, racist environmentalist off the street.
Right.
But, and I think it's I think people like him and Toyah getting back together. I think that kind of triggers the whole member berries in everyone's minds.
Everyone's member berries are tingling at that, yeah.
Right. But to kind of combine it with the whole Toyah killing Imran thing.
It makes it a bit messy, doesn't it?
It does. It does. It's like Kelly marrying Aadi and also Sharon coming back for reasons. Sort of gets muddy.
Yeah. They gave the trial like half of one episode for supposed murder.
Right.
Yasmin got 2 or 3 days
Right.
for hers. And that felt like it was a bit more.
And geez, Sally, who didn't even kill anybody, that went on forever.
So yeah, so they've paced these things better in the past.
Yeah.
My only experience of being on a jury and having any experience of a criminal trial was for assault when I lived in Alloa and I was on the jury, and that lasted for 4 days for just assault.
And I bet it was awful. Was it awful?
I quite enjoyed it. Yeah, that was great. You sit reading a book for the longest time because any time that they're talking about legal precedent and
Right.
stuff like that, you're back in your jury room.
Right.
So we were there for 8 hours a day, and we were probably in the trial for maybe 2 hours a day. And then we had an hour and a bit for lunch, and we're sitting about reading our books and chit-chatting.
Because you can't be like on social media or anything like
No,
that.
you weren't allowed to
Because
do any of that. And we weren't allowed to talk about it. People talked about it.
of course they did.
But you weren't supposed to talk about it until the end.
Right.
People had made up their minds before the end.
Of course.
But no, so that was just for an assault. And
Yeah.
that was 4 days. And this is done in basically an afternoon.
Right. Yeah.
So it's
Not a great optic.
Kind of rushed. I
Right,
don't know
because
why.
they want to move on to other storylines. And I think they also want to move on with the whole spider thing.
But this is the complaint is that this is Toyah's big story. Why should it be rushed like this? It
Right.
should be given the time it deserves, and I
And it
don't feel like it
becomes-
has got that.
And it becomes not Toyah's big story, but more Spider's big story.
Yeah, and Coronation Street's getting a little bit of a reputation here for taking stories off of people.
Right. Especially women.
Oh well, that was the week that was Coronation Street. What was your moment of the week?
What was your moment of the week?
I think it was Leanne and Toyah, and I think their chats probably on Thursday about how I'm here for you and you don't think that you have anything. Well, you've got me, and Leanne, despite knowing the truth now,
Right.
is absolutely all in on Toyah's side, and I
Yeah.
thought that was kind of lovely.
Yeah, I can go for that.
Yeah, well, it was an easy sell. That is our
Moment of the week.
Our moment of the week.
your boring moment of the week.
Is it Sean's kimono? and Eileen calling it a house coat.
No, it was funny. So the cucarachas?
No,
that was
'cause
funny
was
as well.
hilarious.
That was funny as well.
Is it Sam getting shut down about chess?
I think it's something to do with Sam. I think it's Sam trying to be cool. That's probably the boring moment.
Sorry,
of the week.
Jude, but I have to agree with that.
That's our
Boring moment of the week.
all right then. We will wrap this one up at that, and I guess we'll be back next week with however many episodes we're
Who knows?
we're given in the meantime.
Who knows?
If you have any ideas of how many episodes we'll have in the meantime, why don't you please drop us and ITV a line. You can get hold of us at thetalkofthestreet@gmail.com, and we're at Corrie Podcast on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. You can shout me and Hell on the coffee by heading to ko-fi.com, that's ko-fi.com/thetalkofthestreet. Check out the clicky section of voggle.co.uk for links to our merch store and YouTube channel. And if you're so inclined, please leave a rating and a review on the iTunes or your podcast provider of choice. Thanks for making it to the end of another episode, and we will be back next week with more
Talk of the street.
The Talk of the Street.
Bye.
Cheerio.